Jambo, Jambo, everybody. Jambo, Jambo Karibu, Jambo Karibu. I am Dr. Akumbo. My guest today is Sylvia Serbin. Sylvia is a historian, a journalist, and an author. And today we will be discussing the historical perspective of the woman king. I recorded a previous episode called Cultural Relevant Elements of the Woman King. The goal was to just show you those things in the Woman King that makes the movie African. Because in my experience, I found that most movies before the Woman King and even the Black Panther movie, most of the movies that I saw would say it's an African movie, but when you look at it, it's all about the West, or it's all about heroes that have nothing to do with Africa. So it's nice to see movies starting to come out that reflects the heroes that are African, or reflect the main characters that are African or Black, even though acted by African Americans, but they embody the culture of the African people and embody the elements in the society that makes something a part of that society, that are culturally relevant to that society. So it's nice to see. And I am absolutely thrilled. I am absolutely thrilled to see African Americans performing, telling African stories so powerfully. I know the people that have argued that, oh, there is cultural appropriation going on. But for me, as long as it's another Black person acting these movies, and I can see that it's reflecting the culture that most of the African people embody, I think it is their heritage. It is a healing process for me when I see an African American telling an African story, because they are our people. They are they are descendants. We descend from the same ancestors. So yes, I know you could argue that the whole world descends from from one African ancestor, right? But I am saying this from a perspective of the African American being descendants of Africa and only African Americans because of slave trade or because of migration. In my last episode, I talked about just the cultural relevance. It had nothing to do with the historical factors. And today I want to look at some of the historical factors. And I know there are people that are upset that Dahomey is being glorified or being made to look like they had no sense as far as the slave trade is concerned, which is one of the reasons why I thought it would be important to bring in a historian and have a conversation with a historian instead of just leaving it at cultural relevant element. So as I noted, Sylvia Serbin is a journalist, historian, and a writer. Her book, Reine d'Afrique et Héroïne de la Diaspora Noire, Queens of Africa and Heroines of the Black Diaspora. Sylvia notes that no Black heroine has ever been recognized by the so-called universal history. As a result, she went in search of female figures who left their mark on the history of Africa and the Black diaspora, from antiquity to the beginning of the 20th century. In this way, she introduces us to 25 portraits of influential women, resistors to slavery and colonization, warriors, victims, or mothers of kings, most of whom are unknown to the general public. Among them are the Queen Zinza of Angola, Poka of Ivory Coast, Ndete Yala of Senegal, or Rana Valona, the third of Madagascar, Madame Tinubu, a 19th century Nigerian merchant and politician, the Malétresse Solitude, in Guadeloupe and Harriet Tubman in the United States. Ya Asantewa in Ghana or Sarau Nia Mangu in Nigeria. The prophetess Kimba Vita of the former Congo Kingdom, the Amazons of Dahomey, which we know the movie The Woman King is based off of, or the young South African Chahajiri Batma, nicknamed the Huntington Venus, victim of European racism. This is the only book devoted so far to African women and historical actors. A contribution based on written and oral sources that require 10 years of research and that takes us from the north to the south of the continent to discover little known pages of African history. Jambo, Sylvia, Jambo.
Thank you.
So where did you grow up, Sylvia?
In Senegal. I was born in Senegal to French West Indian parents, and I lived about 30 years in African continent, wow. Senegal, Ivory Coast, and I travel a lot across the continent, and I lived in France the same number of years, not to say my age.
Yes. So your parents were from French West Indies, you said?
Yes. But my father was inspector is educational service, and he worked with former President Senghor. And he built and developed many schools in Senegal at that period. Yeah.
That is so wonderful.
Yes, and my mother was a teacher too. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful! Wow. Yeah. So does that explain why you're a historian? Is that where you got?
Oh yes. Because when I was in my childhood, I used to hear by the grandparents of my little friends many stories about the past of the African continent with our great kingdoms and great leaders and queens and so on, and all that things stood in my mind. And when I was a student in Paris in journalism and history, I tried to find those figures I heard in my childhood, because it was at the beginning of feminism in France, and in many regions of the world there was many authors who were trying to bring up figures of women who led their mark in history and so on, and there is no Black woman. So I began those researches to bring our contribution as a historian and as African to show that Black women too had participated in constructing humanity and have participated in history too. It's right. Why my aim and my work during many years. Yeah.
Yes, and you have been doing this work for 20 years now?
The book, my book, main book, Reine d'Afrique, that I want to have it translated and published in USA, but for a moment I don't know. Had been released. There is 18 years.
18 years.
So 18
right.
years.
Right.
And it had been constantly republished till that moment, and I'm waiting a new release for at the end of the year.
Yes, so a new edition is coming out in December.
Yes.
Right now, nobody should order the book. Wait until December, then order.
Yes. And I have also made two books for youth, a youth book, you know. Yes. One to show So it's just to present it, those figures, those female figures for young generation and for a large public who has not possibility to access to our archive of some history book, because the history of Africa is not really taught, you know. And I have one of the Empire of Mali at the Middle Age. And this one is about a Senegalese queen who were a resistance fighter against French colonization in 19th century.
That is fabulous. And all of these books are in French, right? They're not in
Yes, I want to have it translated in English, in Portuguese, but in French, you know, there is a great resistance because it's the first time a Black historian tried to reappropriate her history, often written by Western people with their images, negative images on their racism and about the past of Africa. And it is very difficult for me. It's thanks to the public, because they always order the books, that the book exists, it still exists. But in university, in media, they don't want to heard of that work, and they try to make many barriers against my work.
Right. So they're suppressing your book because they have history. History has been told from a colonial perspective and from the slavers perspective. History has never been told from the African perspective. Growing up, the history books that I read, most of them were, I couldn't even understand some of the history that I was reading. And for me, one of the things that I asked myself was, if you're telling me that my history started in the 1950s, and my father was born in 1923, how is that even possible? So there was so much about history growing up that I was reading about the African history. It was superficial. It made no sense to me as a child. And I loved history. I actually really loved history. Growing up, I thought I was going to be a historian. Growing up, I said, well, I would be a professor of history or banking. So it was either history or banking that I was thinking about. But I have always been confounded with this understanding of present day history that is being taught, and just the reality that what I'm being taught doesn't seem to be true. My history, I have great grandparents. The history of my country cannot start with in the 50s. Cannot start with the 50s. So I am so glad that you have dedicated your life into doing this work, because it is this proverb that they keep saying that I keep repeating. I don't know whether it's Desmond Tutu. I don't know who said it, but it's when the hunter is the writer of the story.
The lion can't have its own history.
So it's always the lion is always going to be the evil person in the story, because it's the hunter telling the story. So if it's the West that is constantly telling our story from their perspective, or our children grow up learning the stories that the West have told about them, and then start to repeat it, and then our stories get lost, and we continue to be the evil ones. We continue to be the ones that were uncivilized. We continue to be the ones that are begging. We continue to be we continue to perpetuate a history that is not our history.
Exactly. And our children can't build a strong identity if they don't know where they come from, where their parents and ancestors have done for humanity. It's why my book treats a period from the antiquity till the beginning of the 20th century, to have a large view of that past, and bring many answers to our question about what we were before colonization on slavery, you know.
Right.
It's why he was so successful. Yeah.
Yes, and it's amazing that it was successful as an underground book. It was not successful because it was being published and accepted.
Yes, yes, yes.
Like that.
Yeah,
It was just
yeah.
because people are hungry for the truth. People are hungry for that knowledge. So people go digging for your book. So
Yes.
I'm really hoping your book can be published in the United States.
Oh, yes. I pray for that. And after the film The Woman King, there is one of the producer who told me that she tried to help me to publish it because my chapter on the Amazon of Dahomey was used by the production among other sources, you know, among other documentary sources, but it was the main synthetic documentation of the Agoji, you know. Yes. It's why she told me it's not normal that France tried to prevent me from finding an American publisher.
Right. Yeah. And it's time for you to get published in the United States. So now that we've talked about generally our background and a little bit, and you got really pushed into doing this telling the story of these women because nobody was telling the story of these women. So can you just maybe give us, you said you did history from antiquity. Can you just talk about slavery? Because slavery is the hot topic now, and slavery is it's people are starting to deny that slavery even if
yes.
So what do you have to tell us about your studies and research as far as this phase that of slavery is concerned before we move to the next phase as we had decided that we would do?
Okay. What I can say that the African continent has been the most assaulted area in the world for the deportation of its Black population by other countries. As far back as ancient Egypt, Pharaoh attacked the former Black kingdom of Nubia to steal their gold and enslave their people. And later after, the invasion of North Africa in the 18th century by the Arabs from Arabia, Bedouin from Arabia, to impose Islam to this part of Africa, West African was deeply attacked by Muslims to stole also their population and to deport them in slavery. And those Black population were sent in Europe, in Russia, in Turkey, in Egypt, in North Africa, in Asia, in India, you know, by slave Arab. But curiously, there is very few researchers who dare to work on that topic. We don't know why. Some people said that it's because they don't want to be accused to attack Muslim people and to speak about that period. So I can say. And after the Arabic slave trade lasted 14 years, you know, and nobody speak about that. And from the 15th century, it was the turn of the Western people, European people, to join the Arab in kidnapping the African population and deporting them across the Atlantic Ocean, you know, and to the new colonies that European has dominated and has exterminated all the native Indians who lived there before, you know, and they took African population to develop their colonies and to enrich them and it's thanks to those African population who work free by those Western people in slavery that the main countries who dominate today our world have been enriched by slavery, you know, and after by colonization. So it's the three things that we can say about slavery. Slavery has existed in Africa by the Arab, by the Western people, and it was very organized to take those people away and to develop other part of the world to make Western countries more rich. It's one thing. And the origin of the slave trade, and I explain it in the same time, when the European arrived with their ships loaded with goods of without values, you know, like old rifles that European didn't didn't use, you know, if they have more modern rifles. So the old rifles, they came to sell them, to exchange them in Africa, on the African coast, and they demand, in exchange of their goods of few values, they demand people. They demand men, women, and children, you know. Yeah. And at that period, many little African kingdom, were trying to develop their countries, their kingdom, right, by doing wars against their neighbors, you know. Mm-hmm. And the king who
so small kingdoms were trying to create war with other kingdoms to build their kingdom.
Yes, but many little kingdom wanted to grow up by absorbing their neighbors, and the king who owned a modern rifle, European rifle, was more strong than her neighbor. His neighbors who have only spears, poison spears, and machetes, and so on, cutlass, and some weapons. Sorry,
right. Some weapons. They only had sticks. They had machetes. They didn't.
Yes, and yes.
And guns, not just guns, used guns.
Yes, and those who used guns were the winner, you know. Right. Mm-hmm. And many little kings who wanted to dominate it, because some African kings refused to work with the enslavers, you know, refused to work with those Western those European in the slave trade. But some other wanted to be very powerful and to dominate their neighborhood, and they accept to give them their prisoners, and they make war and war and war to have more prisoners, and to give them to the European who make the slave trade. And in exchange, they had guns and alcohol and something like that. Mm-hmm. So we can't say today, we can idealize that period. Many of African diaspora, people of African diaspora, are idealizing a period that they don't know, because they have no historical information of what happened at that period. Right. But you cannot say that a king was too shy, to refuse to cooperate with the Western, and so and so. No, because they wanted, they were very on ego. They are very. They thought that they were very strongest than the others. They have to dominate the others. It's why they wanted to make war, to do wars against their neighbors. So they make, yes.
Basically, what you're saying is we cannot just take an idea of war and listen to whatever everybody is saying about Africans and accept it. It's not true, because nobody went to war just for fun. Nobody went to war.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
You went to war because you wanted to conquer, you wanted to have power over someone else, you wanted dominion. And these kingdoms, these were empires. So they wanted dominion also. They wanted to conquer. They wanted to bring in people. So just because they were some kings were able to dominate over others and capture a lot of slaves and sell so that they can have more products to continue to dominate.
Exactly.
That is the story. That is
yes.
People are not just shy sitting there drinking beer and saying, "Oh, go." No, they were warriors, and they went out and fought, and they captured people and they sold them in slavery so that they can grow their kingdoms.
Yes. Because the market was at that period like that. Today, if I make a little apartheid. Today, for instance, it's the same thing. When you have Western countries who were former involved in slavery and colonization, and who go to Africa to take oil or cacao, or coffee, or gold, or diamonds, or minerals to make a telephone, mobile, and so on. It's the same system. In the ships, instead of human being, you have new project coming from the ground of Africa. And if you put that in your mind, you can say that no, it's an invention of bad people to say that there was slavery and so on. No, it's the same system that continue. So the things to do is not to judge history, not to judge the past with our moral of today, with our value of today. We have to keep a little distance to just learn history and say we can't accept that the same thing continue. Yes,
because it's by understanding our past and knowing our past that we can better inform ourselves to create a better day and a better tomorrow. So like just dismissing and saying that the Africans were weak, or the Africans were just greedy and taking a little bit of beer and selling them out, you're not doing justice to history, because that's not true. These people were warriors, these people were fighters, these people owned empires, these people were kingdom builders, and they were trying also to build their kingdoms, and in the process they sold their own so that they can continue surplus to build. And then, as you're saying, slavery it's just changed the name. It's just changed the name. There are countries that are letting Westerners come in and just take their gold and leave. These presidents are in place, they're enabling it. So there are people in place that are enabling it, and they're getting rich out of it. They're doing it for the same reason. They want to be economically stronger.
Exactly.
So instead of being economically stronger for the whole country, no, they want to be rich for them and their
families. For them, yes.
So now it's the same concept. It's the same concept, like you're saying, and people need to actually
know that.
Know that it's the same concept. Slavery, it has just changed its title. Slavery has just changed its title. It changed from selling human bodies to the people coming in and just taking over, slicing the Berlin Conference, slicing countries or territories and just owning it. And then now they're just pulling out products. They come with a little bit of money, and then they just take your products and make excuses like, well, you don't have the money to refine. You buy chocolate that the cocoa came from Cameroon, and then they bring the chocolate back and they refine it somewhere else. They bring it back, they sell it to you for more. Why?
Yeah.
Why? So it's still a form of exploitation. They find an excuse every time to exploit the people and then turn around and blame the people for the exploitation that is happening.
Yeah. Yes. And people who refuse to accept that reality of the history are closing their eyes on what's happening now, you know, and they don't do nothing to change the future of our country, of our Africa, of our continent. Exactly. If you say that, no, it's not, it wasn't true, the former African kings was so nice and they never sold their brothers and their people. No, you have, you know, you have bad people everywhere. Don't judge like that.
That's true. Yes, you cannot deny it either. Like Africans cannot just say, no, we were so nice. They just nothing happened. No, we were corporates also. We were corporate in it. So we have to accept the history from both sides. Ouch. It hurts though. It really hurts because we want to think that we are good people, we're nice people, we will never do something that bad, right? Like, so, but that's not the truth about that history. We have to also accept our role as Africans, our kings that also wanted to grow their kingdoms. We have to accept our part in it. But it stings.
And I want to add it. So I want to add something that we have to be fair with all that people whose ancestors in Africa had been deported, because today, for instance, is in Benin, Republic of Benin, a former kingdom of Dahomey. Whereas people who told me when I traveled several times in that country, who told me that their parents, their ancestors had been deported, but nobody talk about that, you know. But they are in Africa, because many Africans said that as we are West Indian or Black American and so on, it's not the history and slavery. They don't pay attention of that. But in Africa, in the continent, there is many population who belong to democratic countries and who know that their ancestors had been deported, because inside the families, they transmit that history from generation to generation. Never forget that we are all from that country, but our ancestors, because they are more weak than the kingdom of Dahomey, had been deported in slavery. They were free people before. They had their plantation, their villages, they had a name, they had families. And one day, because a kingdom come and to dominate them, they became slaves, and it's finished. Right. So we have to pay attention of that and to respect also those Africans whose ancestors had been deported and who know that till now for the new generation.
Right. Sylvia, you bring a really good point, because my heart, every time I think about slavery, my heart is always heavy for the people that also stayed.
Yeah.
People that their family members were taken. Like, because they sometimes when they tell these stories, they tell it like, oh, Africans sold their own people. But like you have just said, the kingdoms that had the power, the slaves, and so they took the slave from people that were unable to fight back.
Yes.
My brother was taken. My sister was taken. My child was taken. I am going to be in so much pain over that person that was taken. I don't know whether they made the trip to wherever they took them. Maybe they died on the way. I don't know that. I am the one who stayed. I am the one who suffered the pain of them taking you to another country. As much as the person went to that country and suffered and was in pain and was went through horrible treatment. Me who stayed also was in pain. No mother loses a child and not cry. No brother loses a sister and not cry. So there was families that were in a lot of pain because their people were taken. So the pain is all over. Like you cannot dismiss another pain just because a few people that had your skin tone did something bad. No. Thank you for bringing that up, because that for me is the harder part, and I really want Africans in the diaspora or Black people in the diaspora to understand that part. The people who stayed, what was their pain? They missed you. They felt your loss. They felt the gap of you not being there. And never forget that. Never forget that.
And that this history still exists and is still transmitted, fortunately.
Wow, it will be wonderful to dig into that history and just hear the story of these people and how what they went through, how their ancestors went through because of this time. And I really thank you for your work and for starting this serious conversations that nobody have. I'm so honored to have you here having this conversation with me, because this is a privilege that not a lot of people do not have, and I hope that there will be more. So now tell me a little bit more about this Dahomey that has been turning the world upside down because of the woman king. What can you tell our audience about Dahomey?
So as I told, Dahomey was one of the main example of such kingdom, because it was a warrior kingdom, and at the beginning it was just a little circle in a place, and after absorbing more and more territories, he succeeded to arrive to the coast and to treat directly with European to have weapons and to be more powerful. So it is known in that region, and Dahomey is in West Africa, in a part of Africa that is called the Slave Coast, the Gulf of Guinea, and its Slave Coast. There is Dahomey, there is today Ghana, Nigeria, and that coast continue until Angola, you know. And but not some kingdom was treat with European, but Dahomey was wanted to be always the first, the biggest one, and it was. He made so many wars, and he tried to have so many prisoners, you know. And it was, but I have to say that the slave trade was a privilege of the king and of the high personalities in the palace, in the court. Not the people don't have to say nothing about that.
Right.
So, for instance, in the film The Woman King, some people said that when Naniska, the general, the woman played by Viola Davis, said the king to stop slavery, to begin to export palm oil and so on. It was not real, but I think that the filmmaker didn't want that a country could be globally denounced for slavery, because it was the work and the privilege of a king of a certain category of the population, but the rest of the people, we don't know what they thought, and they suffered also from that constant wars, and you know, because and maybe they thought that it was not normal to always go, because in those those wars, they have some parents, even if they don't live in the same place, but the village a little far, maybe it's not the same tribe, but they are parents, you know.
Yes.
So I think that it was important to say that in Dahomey at that period, everybody was not in the same view to continue in the slave trade always. Right. So I think that it was very clever, very intelligent for the production, for the filmmaker to put that idea in the film, to push the people to reflect, you know. That's because it's not, even today we have some countries, we have tyrannic leaders, we have certain who said that they are democratic but also tyrannic, but the people are suffering, you know, by their decision. So it's important to observe that point of view.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, because that is one of the biggest point of criticism of the movie, and the denier. But it's true that there's no country, like your leader makes a decision.
Yes.
You follow the leader. It doesn't mean that you have to accept what the leader is doing.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
You're not going to tell me that, oh, the people should have what, killed their leader? No, it doesn't work like that. There is a system in place, and you still have to follow the system until it's appropriate to not follow the system or be able to make change. And bringing up villages, so there's a lot of intermarriage.
Yes.
The same people, Dahomey people could have also been kidnapped because they were intermarrying with other tribes. So if I am in Dahomey and you're kidnapping my child that is married to another tribe, you think I'm gonna like what the king is doing? I'm not gonna like what the king is doing. So what kind of power do I have to stop the king from doing what he's doing?
At that time, nothing.
At that time, nothing.
Yes.
And you know how our African hierarchy is. Our African system of leadership is very hierarchical.
Yes, yes.
And you have to obey those hierarchical rules. You do not disrespect those hierarchical rules. So yes, it was very clever for them to do that. It might not have been true, but it was true in the broader sense that the people of Dahomey also suffered and they needed change.
Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree with that point, and thank you for making that distinction. So these women, tell us about some of the queens across Africa, some of the warrior queens across Africa, and then tell us a little bit more about this Dahomey women.
Yes, so the women of the Amazon, or Agoji, as the real term in Dahomeyan language, they were enrolled in the army because at one moment there was so many wars that men were dying a lot, and at that period the men was in charge of agriculture. They are taking care of plantation, and the food for the population was produced by men. And not to have starvation in the country, the kings decided to enroll women to complete the army, because they couldn't take all the men, you know. It's how the Amazon began. And after, at the beginning, they were just to protect the palace and the king and something like that. And after, more and more, they began to go to war. And as they were so courageous, so unfair, it's unfair, yes, the king decided to put them at the first rank of the fights, you know, because the Amazon never left the ground of the battle alive. They sometimes, when the soldiers men saw that they couldn't be winners, they trying to flee, you know. But the woman never quit the ground, because they said that we are the protectors of our country, of our society, and if we don't kill the enemy will come to kill our children, you know. And that thought was so strong among them that they are very, very courageous in the battle. It's why they began the main regiments of the army to when there was wars. And King Gezo, who is in the film, decided to professionalize those women. Donc there was 5 regiments. Some women who have guns, others have other weapons, different weapons, and something like that. And they had a they experienced a very hard training to resist thirst, to resist pain, to resist drink, to eat when they are starvation, yeah, to resist. They are very, very hard training to be very strong at when they were fighting.
So they were able to just go hungry for extended periods of time.
Yes. They can resist several days without eating, you know. So it's why they are considered like heroines by their people, because they made so much sacrifice to protect, to be soldiers, to protect their country, and they renounce to be to get married, they renounce to have children, and because they always be they had to be always ready to go to war, and they could have a family life, you know. So they are considered like heroines. But to answer your the rest of your question, in the history of Africa, there were other women who lead armies, like Queen Anazinga in Angola in the 17th century,
Right.
who resist the temptation of Portugal to invade her kingdom. During 40 years, near 40 years, she resisted the Portuguese troops, and she leads her army to the war till her death at the age of 83 years old, you know. In North Africa also, we have at the 17th century a Berber queen who resist the invasion of Muslim Arabic to invade North Africa. Her name was Lakaina, you know. And I speak of all those women in my book. And there is a Dahomeyan queen too at the 17th century who lead also army to the war, the Queen Tassi Yangbe.
That is so fascinating. That is so fascinating. These women need to be in the storybooks. I never heard of these women when I went to school. I never heard of these women growing up, and the only time that I started learning about these women was maybe about 2 years ago. Then I started really digging and going, okay, what is it about my history that I don't know? And just researching and reading online, Googling stuff, and I learned so much. I learned so much in the last 2 years about the African history that I did not know, and some of these women that I did not know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is quite exciting that you did all this work to make sure that we have these stories. So we're trying to get your book up so that
Yeah.
like that's one of them, talking about
Yes.
men. And let's see.
And the main, yes, that is the last one in the
Yes.
Empire of Mali in the 14th century.
Right.
And there is a queen too, very interesting queen.
Right. And then this is the book. This is
Yes,
the book that is
and
coming
this
out
is,
in December.
yes, Queens of Africa and Heroine of the Black Diaspora.
Yes.
That will release in December or January. But I hope to have an English translation for 2023. I hope.
Yes, we have to make sure that happens. All right, great. So I wanted to make sure that we share those and have it out there. Okay, so now that we have a little bit of the history of these Dahomey women, and we know how they came, how they started to be kings, warriors.
Yes.
I wanted to share, I shared this in a previous episode, and I wanted to share it again with you and hear your thoughts about it. Is there are still communities across Africa where women are still, these women still have power, like they have power in the palace, or they have that power is they're consulted, their opinion really counts. Because sometimes there's it almost seems like the African woman is voiceless. The African woman has no power. The African woman is just a baby maker and a cook. So my experience growing up was, I didn't feel that it portrayed an African woman that is powerless. I always thought the African woman was the toughest woman in the family, like the toughest person in the family, because she had the baby, she would go to the farm, she worked the farm, she come back, she do all these things to keep the family running. And if she was in the farm and something was happening, she was the protector. If her husband wasn't around, or the husband went hunting, or she was the home protector. So the woman has always been a protector. The woman has always been the one fighting and making sure the family was safe. So it's, to me, seeing the woman king, just removing the history of it, removing the politics of it, removing the slave trade of it. It just portrays the woman that I know growing up, the African woman that I know growing up. This is the type of woman I know my mother is. This is the type of woman my aunties are, right? So they might not always be in the forefront fighting a war, but at home, in the forefront of the home, they are the protectors. They fight. They protect their kids. So my joy for this movie goes beyond the historical factors. It just goes to present day African women in the village and how she's surviving. And even today, if you go across the northwest province of Cameroon, there are women armies. They are women armies. They might not constantly fight, but they fight in their own way. They fight in their own way. They when you hear them on the street, it terrorizes the men. When the women come out in their little groups, it is a very terrorizing sight, because it's like they go put curses on the men. They could do things that are not good. So it's a concept that is present even today.
That is important to know. For instance, for the former kingdom of Dahomey, it's not unrealistic that women are various, because in that society, women play a key role. For instance, in the economy, not only in Dahomey, but today in Nigeria, in Ghana, those coastal countries, of West Africa, in that cultures, women had always had an important role, and they have their own autonomy because they work, they have their money, they educated children, they make many trade, not slave trade, but trade, and many things. And in other countries, for example, in Muslim countries, African Muslim countries, you have not the same dynamic of women, you know, because they have been completely dominated by some religious principle that prevent women to be ahead, you know. And that images you talk about of weakness and voiceless of women had been created by those imported religious and new view of African society. Because before the Islamization of Africa, before the arrival of colonialism and Catholicism and, you know, all that outside religions, women had a different role. She belonged to the society, and she had a role, and she can counsel the chief, she can have an advice. And if the society was in danger, she could bring her capacity, bring her advices to, and everyone respects her because she was a citizen who come to bring her part to solve a problem of the society. But after those religion came and decided that women, the power must be only for men, and woman has nothing to do with that. There is a complete destructuration of the position of the woman. But in West, in those coastal countries, in Nigeria, Ghana, and Dahomey today, Benin today, they maybe they were stronger than the others, but they kept their value, they kept their strong of active woman, of dynamic woman, you know. And it's important to explain that also.
Right, and I really love that you brought that up. The one thing that I enjoyed about Viola Davis' character was the fact that you could see her femininity, and you could see her warrior, her characteristics. So it's not divided. It's not a divided personality. She's a warrior woman, and you can see that she's a woman. You can see all her emotions. So she wasn't trying to be a man. She was a woman. She embodied all her values as a woman. She embodied what it means to be a woman. She has the vulnerabilities as long as the strength. And I've always argued that people say, Black women are strong. They don't need support. They don't need this. They don't need that. No, Black women are strong when they need to be strong.
Yes, exactly.
Be strong, and they have to be strong. And they will stand up and fight for themselves. They will stand up and do what it needs to protect their own. But it doesn't mean they don't need support. Take that scene where she has to leave. She has to defy the king to go find the other people. She was ready to go do it and die for it.
Yes.
The support, when her army started following her, that for me was like one of the best scenes in that. Because that was a strong woman ready to die for what she believes in. But when she saw the support of her army, you could see that smile. You could see the gratitude. Oh, yes.
It's totally.
One question that I have to ask you before we go, and I want us to explore that a little bit, is that the critics are arguing that Somebody said to me, oh, these people were disgusting people. These people were the horrible people that sold their own people, acquire more kingdoms. And yes, they were selling their own people in exchange for it. It's a horrible, deplorable act.
Yeah.
All agree it is a horrible, deplorable act. Some people say, oh, these women were in the forefront selling their own people. Is that
no?
What do you have to say about that? That
no, it's not true. The Agoji, those various women was just doing their duty, you know. Their role was to make war to protect their king and their country.
Right.
And they obey the orders, but they don't have interest in the results of that orders, you know.
Right.
It's like today in Western democratic country, right, when you send soldiers to the war, you tell them kill Iranian or kill African or kill, they kill. But if you know, but they have no interest to obtain money in, right, in something. You know, they go and they make their duty and they come back because they obey their president or their general on their. And as I said at the beginning, the slave trade was only depended only on the king and the main personalities of the palace.
Right.
So as soldiers, the Amazon had nothing to do with the trade.
Right.
When they were asked to bring prisoners, they don't kill them, they bring them, and the prisoners were sold to the Western, the European slavers, you know? Right. But nobody can say that the Amazon made the slave trade. They are not in the slave trade. They are just obey.
Right, exactly. And then the one thing that I have said, the one thing that I was contemplating when that person said to me, these women were horrible, deplorable human beings. The one thing that has stayed with me is, okay, now that your ancestors that were buying the slaves and taking them to developed countries, if they were not also deplorable human beings, what did they do to the slaves when they got to the place where they were going? How did they treat the slaves when they took this place? Did they treat the slaves like human beings? Did they throw them, or did they throw them off the ships? Or did they refuse to feed them? Or did they put shackle on them? Or when they got to the Americas, they destroyed their identities completely. So you cannot say that the Dahomey people were deplorable human beings. Meanwhile, you who bought the slave and brought the slave to your country treated them 10 times worse than the Dahomey people were treating them.
Yeah.
So that for me, that is my that's the way I'm looking at it. Like, we all share the blame here. We all share the blame of what happened, or the kings did what they did, but you who is claiming to be better, you didn't do any differently. You did worse. You had those people deliver their children, and you sold their children, and you told them they were half of a person. I don't think the Africans were treating their slaves like half of a person. It was not half of a person. You were sold as a slave, you were sold as a slave. You were still a person, not half of a person or a third of a person. So before people start criticizing, they should look at the whole tapestry and see how everybody behaved, and not just throw blame so that they can feel better about themselves, or be angry because they're now making a movie that is going to glorify women in Africa.
Yeah, it's a problem. Many of the criticism We don't know if it's why the film put the light on a Black woman, not on men. And it's the first time, you know, and that a film has an interest for those women, courageous women. And we don't know, it doesn't celebrate the manpower,
Yes.
you know, something like that. So they are criticizing, but by ignorance. Yes. And they put only emotional thought in that movie, or it's a fiction that help us to understand at a period of the humanity of the world in a country, what was the relation between the Western and African, and what that relation came to the disaster that arrived. You know, it's just that. Right. Because before the Arab came to take our ancestors in Africa, and before the European white people came to take our ancestors to develop their colonies, but there is no problem like that. It's because it's that problem depends of the relation created, but on outside forces which come in Africa and decided to install a new system of exchange of relationship. It's important to know that, you know, and that system continue till now. Till now, you know. So, and I just for the Amazon, for instance, yes, they were cruel, but if they don't kill the enemy would kill them. So it's war. Today, people of Afghanistan can say that American soldiers were savage, were bad, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So African people who had been dominated by the kingdom of Dahomey, it's normal to say that they are that those women was so bad, so you speak about their cruelty. It's normal, it's human, but it's war. It's like the world when two countries are opposite and in war, that's happened. But we are just to analyze that and say how to make that it doesn't come again.
Right. Amen. Amen. Yes. It's about knowing our history so that we don't repeat it. It's about knowing our history. Denying our history it doesn't do us any good. It doesn't good. Wow, this is great. Now, can you just give us a little bit how this fits into all the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging conversation that is out there trying to make the world a better place, create a little bit more racial equity and things like that?
I think that this movie, to come back to it, was interesting because it delivers a new another images of Black women that the images created by enslavers and by colonialists on Africa and its people, you know. And it shows us that those women had values of courage, of dignity, of sense of freedom, and so on. And today, we Black women have those values in heritage. Sometimes we generally the media, Western media, the global media said that Black women are voiceless, as you said, as very have no power, right. And yes, but we have inside in us, we have in us that the memory of our strong ancestor, and we never forget that. And we have to transmit it to our children, to our daughters.
Right.
Because, for instance, if I take African descent in slavery, they had to be very strong to survive to the cross of the ocean, to survive in hostile colonies, to survive under the domination of white people who wanted to have just their work, but who were ready to kill them at, you know, and that strong, that courage, we never have to forget it, you know. And to do today, for instance, our children are, when they make good studies, they are graduated, they have to work much more than others to be recognized. It's something strong there inside there, but you know, and I think that we have to fight to be recognized as women, right, who are responsible, who are courageous, who have a sense of to build of life, and who are capable to cross the barrier behind us, in front of us, sorry. And I think that when all the society inside where we live accept that, we will be more, it would be more acceptable for us to be to feel comfortable to build our lives, you know. I don't know if I'm not clear. No, but maybe you can explain it. Yes.
No, you are very, very clear. Very, very clear. It's the Woman King has started to create the true image of what a Black woman is.
Yes.
And that is not the image that the world knows of. So all these values that you have said, all the survival skills, all the ability to work 3 or 4 times harder just to excel. So it's like, what I'm taking away from what you just said is, I have to also start accepting these things and remembering these great values that has been transferred to me by my ancestors. As a Black woman, I have to be able to know who I am as a Black woman, and then start working, keep working hard, and society will eventually accept it.
Yes.
So I cannot just sit there and say, oh, I'm a Black woman, I'm marginalized, I'm this, I'm that, and then not do anything about it. Then society will continue to treat me as that. But which is one thing that I absolutely admire about Viola Davis doing this. Viola Davis is a warrior through and through.
Yeah.
Because for her to go and do this movie, the first Black movie, it takes a woman that has suffered, a woman that has gone through trials and tribulations, a woman that is confident in herself,
yes,
to be able to do this movie. Because a young girl will look at it and be like, oh, there's too much controversy around this movie, I can't do it. But if you as a woman has really formed your identity and you accept who you are and you know how to, what you are doing by doing such a movie, then you do it.
Yeah.
He has done something exceptional and portrayed the African woman, all the filmmakers, and even you, telling this story of these women in your book, even you doing it, meanwhile, nobody has ever done it.
Yeah.
It's courageous. It's very, very, very courageous. It's very courageous of you to bring to light these women and talk about women that people don't want to talk about, and all the controversy and criticism that are coming right now, and being able to stand up and accept some of the criticism and be able to speak to those criticism. So I want to just congratulate every woman that have been involved in this movie, and just to say, African women, Black women in the diaspora, please keep digging into your ancestry, dig into your into the values that that your ancestors has passed on to us by their life, by surviving slavery on the colonies, by just surviving a lot of things. Like let's keep digging into our ancestors' courage and values and norms and culture. Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose que tu voulais dire pour conclude?
Oui. I was very, very happy to have this conversation with you, because I noticed that many persons are waiting information about our history, but they don't know nothing, because it's not. I think that African history is the less taught in the world. Nobody wanted, because I think that those we write history are most of them Western people who write forgery about us, you know. And during 4 centuries, they said that we were we were living in trees and did nothing, and even recently a little French president told us that the African never entered history. You know, it was not so. Yeah, you remember?
I remember that.
And I think that it's really a pity that that there is not much more researchers, African researchers, who tried to reappropriate that history. It's fighting. We have to be courageous, because they try to discourage us, because they don't want that all things they said about us. Now we have made the same studies than us. We went to the same universities, and we are able to say that it was lying. You know, there was lying, and they don't want that history to be known. So it's a real fight, and our new generation, we can't leave them in a dark. In a dark storm like that. They need to have information to bring to build a strong identity. So I'm very happy to have such exchanges, to have such a discussion with people who have an interest to that, because you know, all powerful countries, they built their image by saying that they had great kings, great castle, great palace, great, you know, great ships to go anywhere and to take people and to make them work for them. But no, Black people who had nothing. They said that we didn't bring nothing to humanity. It's not real. It's not true.
Not true.
Our history proves that it's not true. So we have to try to learn history, to pay an interest. Unfortunately, I know that there is a big desire to know, and many in social media, many people try to make little video. But there is many things who are not true in it. But it's a one step, a first step.
One step, yes.
Yes, just one step. So when I see some reaction after the film, for instance, many of them, because they don't know the history, the real history. So they are imagining, their imagination works to create a perfect world, you know. But with contribution like that, and with the help of people like you try to discover us, to convince us to come and have an exchange. I'm very, very happy to do that with you.
Wonderful, thank you. And I will be sending you another invitation. We are going to, I know Wakanda It's not your area, but when Wakanda comes out, I want you to watch Wakanda, and I want you to maybe join a panel. So I'm going to plan it out and see another panel, because your voice needs to be out there. Your voice, because I talk about Wakanda when it came out the first time, and I created a model to assess culture to see if this movie really fits an African culture. So I take my model and I run through the movie and I look and I mark and say, is this movie, does it pass my cultural check? If it passes my cultural check, I say, yes, it passed my cultural check. It doesn't pass my cultural check, I'm like, nope, pass my So, wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was really great. And I cannot wait to get that book. We have to get that book out in English so people can read it.
Thank you very much.